That was ace, wasn't it? Certainly gets the juices flowing for Sunday. The duel in the Super Sunday Crown, Liverpool against Manchester United, of course. We're going to go into detail in this very first part about that particular fixture. But, as we saw there, Mark, it really does set it up for a fantastic game, doesn't it?
It does. A great rivalry. Worldwide famed rivalry. Two big teams. One's running away at the moment. So I'm sure United will be more than keen to get that one back. So, very much looking forward to it.
That's the fascinating part of the game is going into it. Obviously, we've seen Manchester United in seasons gone past. They ended Chelsea's unbeaten run, 40-game unbeaten run. They ended the Invincibles' unbeaten run, the Battle of the Buffet, it became known. So, potentially, yes, we'll discuss Liverpool's title credentials in due course, but there's something there that motivates. Obviously, the rivalry is there. There's a real distinct dislike for each other. But to end the run would be something, wouldn't it?
Well, I think, adding those two together, I think the fact that Liverpool are 27 points ahead of Man United in the league at the minute will mean absolutely nothing when the game starts, because, it'll be a chance to kickstart Man United's season. But the type of side Man United as well, that they have got a real counter-attacking threat to the way they play. They're a very, very pacey side. So if they can start the game really well, it's always going to be a difficult game, but it's just hard to see past Liverpool and the way they're going at the moment. I read an interview with Alisson earlier that said about their mentality this season is so strong after last season, after just missing out, and it's hard to really see too much knocking them off. Is
that a credit to the way that they've really kind of obviously beginning the season off the back of becoming European champions, but there is that urgency, that hunger, isn't there, to really nail the colours to the mast of being Premier League champions? And how much do we respect what Jurgen's done with the players that he's got to work from disappointment of coming second after one hell of a title race to go again in the fashion that they've done so far this season?
They've won the European Cup, the Champions League. They've taken that huge title, but then to have that hunger and desire, as Gary refers to, it's almost tangible. You can taste it, can't you? You look at them, they're so hungry. You try and look for a weakness, and you can't really see them. I heard someone say maybe 1v1's Trent Alexander-Arnold. I wouldn't mind him as a right back at 1v1. So you look at it and go, they're strong all over the pitch. They have that desire, that unity, collective unity, and to me, I think it's done now. It's just I think in my humble opinion, it's done. They look so strong. This game, of course, a local rivalry, what it means to so many people, the fans, the players, is clear to see. But I think the league title's over, personally. As
we look at players and compare and contrast, but when you look at managers, especially from your positions as being managers, what stands out from what Jurgen Klopp does that you take little bits about how he approaches the way that he's gone about Liverpool?
I think to maintain that appetite. As I say, once you've won the Champions League and the style they have and they come so close to the league, many would think teams might disband or new faces required. I think to galvanise his squad again in the way that he has, all credit to him and his staff, of course.
From Manchester United's point of view, we talk about Ole being in charge and the different kind of ebbs and flows of the season so far. To get something from this game, pushing them forward into the last third of the season, if you like, is it about not only the game out of context because of the rivalry with regard to the two cities, but what it could possibly do towards the end of the season from now to get something out of this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the first thing he'll be hoping Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that Rashford's fit, because his goals recently have been a huge factor. I think that Man United's front three have actually scored very, very well. Recently, and have been every bit as good as any three in the Premier League. I think Martial showed that. I was critical at the start of the season just because I felt that letting Lukaku. I know it's hard because you don't know what's gone on behind the scenes, or it's easy just looking from afar. But the fact that Lukaku had left, I felt was a big gap in terms of what they had. But they've got so much pace and so much power in those forward areas. I think it's the rest of it. It's just getting that right structure to go to Liverpool. You cannot be open in any way. You've got to be defensively brilliant against Liverpool, because they'll keep possession, they'll counter-attack you, they'll press you, they'll do a little bit of everything to you. But it's a huge, huge game for Man United, and it's a big game for Liverpool, but for them it's about maintaining what they've been doing.
Does United's success hinge on Marcus Rashford being fit?
I think you have to say he's a huge factor, such has been his form, attacking from that wide area as well. He offers something different, the sheer pace, his eye for goal, undoubtedly a huge threat. So you hope very much he's available for the fixture. But they've got the Greenwood stepping in, as you say, Martial, they've got goals in the squad. It'll be out on the pitch you have to worry about, because Liverpool possess the same attacking threat. well known now, you know, set in the ways they can attack you, the fullback's getting forward, the ball's coming in the box. They have to be solid and compact, but there's no doubt United can score goals.
You mentioned Greenwood and Martial, but it's quite clear that there's become a reliance on Marcus Rashford. Obviously, him coming on to supplement the game against Wolves and coming off injured in due course, that's got the feathers ruffled, hasn't it, for the Man United fans? Does that mean now we're in January, could they be looking to supplement the attack, or do we then look at Man United in any transfer window that suddenly whoever they're going to go after, the money goes up, the price goes up, sometimes they get quoted out of the actual market?
And whatever your level, whether you're at the very top of the tree or you're at the bottom of the tree, you've got to add quality to your squad. So to go and get a better striker, or to add quality to the United strike force, will be very, very expensive. They'll have to reach at this time of the year. And the same question, do you wait until January? They've got the options at the moment, so it's going to be a very, very talented player to add quality to the ranks.
Would you be... I presume from Ollie's point of view, you're looking at, obviously, reassurance, constant reassurance as a manager to be able to be in a position where you can do your utmost. Do you get the feeling that United at this moment in time are in sync with what Ollie wants to take the team forward in the window?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, there's so many media reports about the likes of Pochettino still being available. Of course, they you know, it sounded as though he was the sort of manager that they wanted. You know, when he was Spurs manager. I think that's just something you have to deal with as a manager of Man United. You know, that role, you're always going to be under scrutiny. You're always going to have people speculating as to whether you're going to be there long term. But I'm sure that won't bother them. I think it's about them. I mean, listen, it's a great game to focus on, isn't it? I don't think your focus is going to be around those external stories. It's going to be around doing what you need to do. You saw it with Liverpool. They strengthened last season with some really top players, and I think in a way that's probably why they're even stronger this season than they were last year, because those players have now bedded in. Those players are now coming to the fore. Their squad is probably as strong a squad as there is in the Premier League, you know, probably alongside Man City. And maybe Man United might need a window or two more to get to where Ole Gunnar wants to be.
Well, how tough is it then, Mark, from Man United's point of view? When you look at, there's no Pogba, no Shaw, no Fosu Mensah, Eric Bailly's out also, McTominay's out, perhaps Rashford going into the game at the weekend. Does it feel like Liverpool have been more proactive? Obviously, you're at the mercy of form and fitness with any form of playing staff, but does it feel like Liverpool have been more proactive with regard to who they want to bring in at certain stages in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
I think they have. I think the recruitment network, their structure's obviously in great shape. One thing for me sticks out is Van Dijk. They identified at the time they had problems in central defence. And 75 mil, I believe, was the price, and everyone gasped at 75 mil. They identified the problem and they resolved it really swiftly. I think all credit to them. He's been a magnificent addition to the squad. And I think if you're a Man United or you're Tottenham or Chelsea, whoever it may be, you think, is that the way to go? To be really brave, and you may have to pay way above the odds, but it fills that void for you. And I think they sent a lesson out to a few other teams, I think, at that time.
The perennial debate, obviously, we talked about a player there that's out injured, Paul Pogba. It goes on and on and on and on. And it probably won't end until he either says, yes, I want to stay for the next 5 or 10 years, or he gets his wish and moves on. When you're a manager in that position, when something is rumbling on like that and you're not actually getting the benefit of having that player actually on the pitch to affect the game, how hard is it to maintain focus? Because you are talking about one of the biggest players in the world, taking focus of what is going on the pitch, good, bad or indifferent.
I think again, to a certain degree, it's part and parcel of being at that level. But it's incredibly difficult to retain focus. I mean, you know, I remember reading 1 or 2 stories. He's injured. He's out in Miami for his rehab, and just those sort of things. It's always difficult as a manager. Well, he never. Yeah, it's a stress. Yeah, he didn't go to St George's, did he?
Burton.
But it's difficult, isn't it, when you keep hearing the same sort of stories about the same player. It's hard to, even without knowing him, it's hard to think that, you know, he's in it for the long term for the club, and I think it's always just going to rumble on until probably he's elsewhere.
Statistically, when we look at the way the two sides have broken down, their effect on the Premier League season this year, Mark, I mean, we can make numbers and stats say as much as we want or as little as we want, but, I mean, there's the differentials in the numbers there. Does that suggest a team that's 27 points ahead of the other one?
It doesn't, no, it really doesn't. But I think you look at the clinical nature of Liverpool, the different areas the goals come from, and their consistency, absolutely. And as you say, you can see United being very, very good 2, 3, 4 weeks and then falling on the 5th. So consistency is a big point for me. But you look at those stats there, David, and there's not a great deal of difference. Motivation-wise, when you look at the word consistency there that Mark's used,
How, again, we're not just going to wax lyrical about Jurgen Klopp. He's obviously doing a very good job. But, I mean, the point of view of maintaining consistency from high-level players and all the kind of connotations that comes with managing those types of players, how tough is that? Because everyone, players, look at the manager and we say, come on, you tell us what to do, show us the way to go. How hard is it to maintain, to set that cut, to set that standard day in, day out as a manager?
I think it's incredibly hard. I think you have to, you know, as a leader of any organisation, you have to try and inspire people. You know, you have to try and do it day in, day out, even if you don't feel like doing it. You know, and that takes an incredible amount of energy. For me, that's been the difference between the likes of Klopp and Guardiola. They just seem to exude that extra charisma and that extra energy. You know, that seems to stand out. You know, it looks like they have a great relationship with the players. I'm not suggesting all the players, but the players want to play for them, and it just seems like those two teams just have a little bit more zip in their performances and a bit more consistency. Yes, they've spent bundles of cash, probably more so than anyone else, but you know, that seems to me to be the bit that stands out. Just that, you know, they just seem so energetic and charismatic. It's hard not, when you listen to them, Jurgen Klopp, it's hard not to, you almost want to play for him yourself, you know, because he exudes confidence, doesn't he?
And it's true, the size of the squads. So you have to keep 7, 8, 9, 10 very experienced players happy. And he's got that gift, and you say Pep Guardiola the same. They maintain that unity within the squad. And you spoke previously about Paul Pogba. It's that unity, collective unity, that any successful team, business needs.
Is that paramount? Obviously, with your experience of life outside of football, it does exist, that you can bring into football. Is it paramount that the team ethic is the one kind of focus for everyone involved in that, regardless of whether you're playing, whether you've been playing consistently or in and out of the team or getting bit parts here and there?
Paramount for me, absolutely paramount, that you've got to make sure everyone feels valued, everyone contributes. You can name 11 players. You know, they all want to be in the team, they all want to play, they're competitive animals. But anywhere you go, you've got to make sure that you value those people and they're all in it together. Get that right and you're in a good place.
Man United were going to go out for some warm-weather training. They're not now. Would that have an adverse effect on perhaps the rest of the season? A bit of sun on the back would be pretty nice.
I've done it once before.
What was it like?
Dubai trip. I don't think we won for about 10 games afterwards.
Did you do much training there?
Well, we wanted to do a lot of training, but the players had other ideas. So yeah, I think it's always a difficult one. I think you're never sure what the balance is. I think sometimes it's that consistency and continuity that comes with it. I actually think occasionally you're almost better letting the players have I think I've read a little bit about Man City. Almost let them have 3 or 4 days with their family and let them do whatever they want to do. 3 or 4 days, get away from the group, come back in a little bit fresher.
I think with the ethos with the Man United thought process was a week almost as a reward for the work they've done so far. That chance to either go on warm weather training or perhaps being away from the actual hustle and bustle of what the training ground is. Can you see the reasoning behind that? Can you see the need for a situation such as that?
It's hard to be rewarded to be 27 points behind the leaders in the Premier League. I'm sure the fans probably won't agree, but every manager has to make a call, don't they? Every club has to make a call. I'm sure there's certain commercial obligations that might be factors in some of the trips as well. It's a global game, and these are global corporations. But ultimately, as a manager, you're going to live and die by the choices you make. Whether that's a week in Dubai, whether that's 3 or 4 days off, whether you keep working throughout that period and maintain the intensity, at some point you're going to know whether you've made the right or the wrong decision.
So they live and die by the decisions going into the weekend. How do United approach trying to get something from Liverpool at Anfield?
I think they'll obviously know their opponent very well. They'll analyse and prepare really well. They'll recognise the strengths and the weaknesses of their opponent and look to capitalise. It's another game. Of course, they're playing the league leaders who are in superb form and unbeaten for X number of games. But the key fact is going to every game, making sure the players feel prepared. And there's no doubt Ollie will do that. There's no doubt. And they've shown their quality. You know, the game away against Man City, how good they were. They can hit on the counter. They have that pace we referred to earlier. They're a threat, and they will know that. They'll absolutely know that.
You mentioned earlier on about you've got to make sure that there's no gaps, there's no kind of anything really to give them any form of encouragement. I mean, God forbid, Liverpool don't need encouragement, do they, especially at home? But it must be so tough because we're talking about a team performance of obviously very, very good players for Manchester United, but it's got to be 95 plus minutes of intense concentration, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think when you play a side like Liverpool, I mean, you know, it's difficult, isn't it? When you've got a top 3 like they've got, and all the other players, but particularly that top 3, you've got to limit their space. You can't give them too much space. I think it's a fine line, isn't it? You go to Anfield, you can't just allow Liverpool to have all the game and to pin you back and to just do whatever they want and just sit in and try and counter-attack occasionally. But you have to find the right balance. I think you have to find the right balance between a little bit of possession, trying to put Liverpool under pressure, but not leaving too many gaps, because you leave gaps at Anfield, you're going to get destroyed by that front three. And I think that's going to be the fine balance, and it's not an easy balance, that's for sure.
So that's it, finally balanced. How do you see the game going?
I see it being a tight game, but I see Liverpool winning just because, not because I don't think Man United are a good team, just because, again, we speak about that mentality of Liverpool. I just think they're so focused this season on winning the league. Like Mark says, they've got the Champions League under their belt. They didn't really lose the Premier League title last year, did they? You know, they were just at a side that just managed to win an inordinate amount of games. So I think this season, they're so focused, I think it's hard for me to see them lose that focus at the weekend.
For you, Mark?
I think the first goal is important. I think the timing of the first goal is important. If Liverpool get the early breakthrough at home, I think it puts a lot of pressure. I think you'll really see the power of Liverpool's attacking force. But the longer the game goes on, United have that threat, and especially if Rashford is fit, they know they've got that real potent up front. So looking forward to it. But I think it's a much tighter game than people realise. They're expecting 3 or 4, 1 or it may be. I think it'll be a very, very tight game.